What is going on, people? Welcome back to another live stream. Today we are going to talk about this oversold market. Is this an opportunity, or are we looking at a bigger drop in the next couple days or next couple weeks? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having a fantastic what's the date today? Tuesday. Hopefully you guys are having a fantastic Tuesday. If this is your first time right here, just do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. If you're watching the live stream, do me a favor and hit the like button. And if you also have some stuff that you would like me to analyze, put them in the chat, guys. Once again, welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having an amazing Tuesday. We are here to talk about this extremely oversold market in the short term. When you look at daily RSI, it is currently down in the low 20s. Yesterday, or at least 2 days ago, RSI was around 23. Like, this has got to be one of the lowest daily RSI in the history of BTC. So the question is this an opportunity? Like, is this an opportunity in the short term? Should you be a buyer, or, are we looking at a bigger drop in the next couple weeks? And should you stay on the sideline? That is what we are going to talk about. We'll also talk about the altcoin market, including Ethereum. And if you guys are interested in the equity market, I don't mind looking at a few stocks. But once again, welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having an amazing Tuesday. If this is your first time right here, hit that subscribe button. Hit the like button if you're watching this. And let's talk about this market. Daily RSI, one of the lowest. This is one of the lowest Bitcoin's daily RSI probably in the history of this market. I mean, you got to go all the way back to 2023, early 2024, mid 2024. You got to go all the way back to June of 2022 to get, RSI this low, like down in the low 20s. Yeah, you got to have to, travel back. You need to go all the way back a couple years ago. So, are we looking at an opportunity to jump into the market, or are we looking at a bigger drop, in the next couple of days? I'm going to give you guys my opinion on this based on oversold RSI in the bear market, what that, tends to actually mean. During a bull market, an oversold RSI is normally an amazing opportunity. You want to be a buyer. But in a bear market, is it the case? All right. In a bear market, should oversold RSI be a reliable indicator? All right. We'll talk about it, and I will give you guys my opinion on it. Once again, welcome back to the channel, guys. If you are here for the very first time, just do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. Do me a favor and hit that subscribe button if you are here for the first time. I'm not going to waste your time, though, so I want to jump straight to the point and analyze this market. So we are here, all right, 75,000. Oh, man, this is just, you got to be careful with this market, guys. Whatever you do, you got to be careful. Anyways, yes, let's get it. Let's talk about it. All right, so we have probably one of the lowest daily RSI in the history of Bitcoin. Our current daily RSI is right now around 25. So, if you look back, the last time we had a daily RSI in the low 20s, We have one right here around November 2025. We'll take a look at the price of Bitcoin at the time. And then we have another one right here around March of 2025. And then when you go back, we're looking for a 25 RSI. And then you go back to August of 2023. Look, we're already in 2023. And then you go back in July of 2022. And then I'm going to go back just one more time. And then you also have to go back. This is RSI in the 20s or below 25. And then you go back to January of 2022. So, just looking at from 2022 until today, only five times we had a daily RSI down in the low 20s. So this is a very significant. Now, if you look at the performance, if you look at the performance of Bitcoin based on RSI in the low 20s, if you look at the last one, the most recent one, the price of Bitcoin was around basically $80,000. That was the bottom of the pullback. And then BTC goes up to $96,000. If you look at back here, RSI somewhere around 83,000. Price goes up to $94,000. And then you go back to right here in 2023, August of 2023. Price was around 25,000. And of course, the rest is history. And then you go back to this one right here. Price was around $20,000 or $22,000 or $21,000. We had a nice rally back to $25,000. And then you had another one right here. Back in January 2022. Price of Bitcoin somewhere around $35,000. We had another rally back to $48,000. So previously, as you can see, an RSI in the low 20s has always been an opportunity to get into the market. So the question is this time, all right? Are we going to see exactly, kind of the same rally playing out after RSI in the low 20s, or are we looking at a continuation of this drop right here? That should be the question right now. So if I'm on this daily, if I'm looking at BTC right here, first and foremost, I am going to say that it is extremely impossible to predict short-term price outlook. And this one right here for me is not going to be a prediction. But if we were to get some sort of a rally, $80,000 would be a place of interest. And if we can break above $80,000, then I'm also looking at this $84,000 as another $85,000 as another area of interest. These two will be my targets if we were to get some sort of a rally, because daily RSI is extremely, extremely oversold. All right, we just aren't going to stay oversold for a long period of time. And as the RSI recovers from its oversold territory, that could potentially, show up in the price. So the price of Bitcoin could potentially go up a couple $1,000s. Now, let's talk about the oversold condition and the oversold indicator. In a bear market, you do not want to rely on oversold. And the reason is because in a bear market, the RSI is most likely, going to be oversold for plenty times. All right, plenty times in the bear market, RSI is going to be oversold. And RSI is not really a good indication the price is going to go up. Right? Oversold RSI in the bear market is not a good indication the price is going to go up. The reason is simply because when your RSI is in a bearish territory, you are more likely to encounter plenty times when you are oversold. Just like in a bull market, guys, it is the opposite of the bull market. During a bull market, because RSI is in a bullish territory, you are going to encounter plenty times when RSI is overbought. And that doesn't mean that you're automatically going to see a pullback. All right. Oversold RSI can remain oversold for a very long period of time. Just like overbought RSI in a bull market. Right. It could remain overbought for a very, very long period of time. So what I will say to you is that relying on oversold RSI as an indication to jump into the market or as a reason price will go up, it is not a good indicator. All right, RSI oversold will not be a good indicator because sometimes price go up, of course, guys. But the thing is, you just never know when. Like you don't know when the price is actually going to go up because this RSI can stay oversold for a very long period of time. So if I'm looking at BTC right here, all right, I'm not really sure what we get. But what I will say is this. We are potentially going to see some sort of positive price action. Like we already have some. We've gone from around 74,000 back to $79,000. So this has already been very positive price action. If we do continue to go higher, I see 80,000 and I also see $85,000 as potential price targets. Now, I want to bring up my EMAs right here, guys. If I'm looking at my moving averages, 21 and a 50. The 21 EMA is right now around $85,000. The 50 EMA is right now around $88,000. So my prediction is that even if we get some sort of a bounce, we more likely will not break above the 50 daily moving average. And that is at $88,700. So to me, what that means is that, the maximum that we could potentially get if we do get a rally is $88,000. Look, I don't even think we go to 88,000. I think we might go sideways. Price might go down just a little bit. Allow these moving averages to drop a little lower, before we touch them again. I just, guys, I really don't see BTC above 85,000 if we are going to be very honest. If we go to the 4-hour, I'm looking at the 200 moving average, it's currently around $87,000. I'm looking at the 50 moving average. It is currently around 82,000. This 4-hour right here, if I put a trend line, if I go like this, like you are, looking at a major resistance. But I really don't see price even pushing all the way up into this $84,000 resistance if we are going to be very honest, guys. I think we could potentially get something like this. Maybe we go up like this and then we roll over again. Something like this where price, goes from 74,000 to 80,000, 82,000, and then we go lower. This is basically kind of what my outlook is on this market. And what I would say is this, when we are speaking about oversold RSI and how that could potentially be an opportunity, I don't think that is an opportunity that you want to take advantage of. And the reason is because in a bear market, more than not, your timing of trying to capture a bear market rally is going to be off. All right, 90+%, your entry is going to be terrible. So you rather just stay on the sideline, If you want to short the market, wait for a rally, wait for price to retest some of those key levels. It could be moving averages. It could be the prior resistance that becomes the prior support that becomes a resistance. But trying to time if this is the bottom and trying to take advantage of a bear market rally, back to certain targets, it's one of the worst things that you can do in a bear market. Simply just short the market, guys. This is like trying to short the market in a bull market. This is like trying to time a pullback during a bull market. Can you imagine when the price of Bitcoin was running and you're trying to time the pullback? More often than not, your entry is going to be terrible because you have more buyers than sellers. Right now, you have more sellers than buyers. So more likely your entry, all right, if the strategy is to capture a short-term bounce, your entry is going to be terrible. And more likely than not, you are going to lose money. Yep. Appreciate you guys for joining. Smash the like button. If this is your first time right here, subscribe. I am selling Jasmine. It will recover. That is Acts 2.21. I mean, listen. Hopefully it recovers. I'm not saying that Jasmine is not going to recover. I'm just looking at the charts and I think, if you can stomach another 20, not even 20, another 50% drop from right now, then, you might as well just hold on to your altcoins. But other than that, yeah, it's going to get crazy. So the reason I'm really not a fan of trying to capture a day cap bounce, especially right now, and the reason I'm really not a fan of, looking at this current oversold RSI and viewing it as an opportunity is because, Chad, you gotta zoom out, man. When you zoom out and you look at this weekly time frame right here, this is something that we've talked about yesterday. Last week we had a nasty weekly close. And I know some of you guys, not you specific, that's watching this stream, you guys that watch my market breakdown, market analysis. But, many of us out there, like, they're taking this weekly close lightly. Like, they're not really taking this serious. I'm going to be very honest. Like, this is bad right here, guys. Like, you don't understand how bad this is until a couple months from now. You look back and price is, I don't know, in the mid $50,000 range. And you realize how nasty of a bearish confirmation this was actually. Trust me, you won't realize it until, a couple months from now when it's, when it's more clear. Just like when BTC lost $98,000, when we lost $98,000, I became, bearish on the market. And I said it, I was like, hey, I think we are officially in the bear market. So back then when we had this weekly close, you didn't really appreciate it at the time. You didn't appreciate how nasty bearish this weekly close was. But when you look back now, it's very clear. All right, hindsight is 2020, but in real time, what you should always try to do is try to envision the obvious before they become obvious. Try to kind of, see a reality before that reality becomes a reality. So I think people just don't appreciate how bearish last week what actually was. Closing below 80,000. That was nasty, guys. But I promise you, give it a couple months. When the price is in the mid $50,000, and let's say we go to 30,000, and I'm not predicting a $30,000 Bitcoin, but if the price of BTC is around 30,000, you look back at losing $80,000 and you realize that was the confirmation right there. But right now it's kind of hard to see. What about the CME gap? Yo, guys, I'm gonna be very honest with you guys. You see these gaps? I don't care about these gaps. I'm not one of those people that always talk about, oh, we're gonna go back, we're gonna refill the gaps. Look, do gaps refill? Of course, guys, but they don't have to. The thing is that they don't have to. The market doesn't have to do what we want the market. It's like people want the market to do certain things, but the market doesn't care, guys. There is a gap around $9,000, I believe. All right, there is a gap around $9,000. I believe this. What is? Let me see. Try. Give me a second. Let's look at Bitcoin's future. What's the ticker symbol for? There we go, right here. Chat. This is the gap right here, right? There's a gap right here. There's also another gap. I think the gap is on the daily. So there's a gap on around 80. This one is 81, 79 to 81, right? I promise you, there's a gap. Look, there's a gap around, I think it's $9,000. That was never refill. Where is 9K? There's a gap somewhere around $9,000. Where is 9K? 9K is right here. Yo, chat, there's a gap right here. There's a gap right here. Look. So do we go back and refill this $9,000 gap? There's a gap right here, guys. Around $9,000. So, do we go back and refill this $9,000 gap? I don't think so. All right. So, yes, I know there's gaps. There's also another. There we go. There's another one right here. Hold on. What about think of this, right? What about during the 2021 bull market? There was a gap right here. Imagine waiting for this gap to refill in that bull market. Price, the bull market got away from you because even with this pullback, we actually never filled the gap until, you can make an argument until the next bear market. There was also another gap. I think I saw another gap somewhere around. Did I just saw another gap? There was another gap. Anyways, look. Gap around. Okay, what about this one right here? Look, this was a gap. Okay, imagine waiting for this gap to refill. Yo, you would have to wait until, the next bear market. This was around July of 2021. You don't come back to 34,000 until February of 2022. So these gaps, they don't have to fill. Now, we tend to fill them, but they don't have to, they don't have to fill. And this is why, personally, I don't care about gaps, guys. Look, there's a gap right here. So maybe we go up and refill the gap. But who cares about these gaps? Personally, I don't. But anyways, so, could we get a bounce? Of course we can get a bounce. But when you look at this weekly setup right here, to me, look, I'm making an argument that 74,000 is not going to hold. People think $74,000 is going to hold. I don't think so. I think we're going to, I just think we're going to breeze through 74,000 and people are chat, hopefully none of you guys is surprised if we blast through 74,000. My argument is this. This was a weekly bear market rally. Like, we just had one. So I don't see how we get a weekly bear market rally, we lose a major support, and then the week after, we go up again. Yeah, I don't see how that plays out. And that is why, my outlook on this is that we're going to crash through 74,000 and you are going to see the price of Bitcoin. Look, I think you see the price of Bitcoin around $58,000 all the way up to around 65. I think this is an area of interest. Of course, we should be looking at the entire range if we are going to be very honest. But, I'm looking at 58 right here. You can even go up to, 58 right here. And I'm also looking at, 65, $66,000. I am looking at this range right here. And I think this is more likely where price of BTC is taking us. My other argument is that we're more likely to get exactly the same move as this right here. So if you think about this drop right here, guys, from $126,000 to 80,000. So if you go from the top of the rally, this brings us somewhere around $52,000. But when you think about where $52,000 is, all right, before you get to 52,000, you have, a bunch of support right here from $58,000 all the way up to 65. I remember, during a bull market, 58,000 acting as a support and also at the same time trying to break above $58,000. Like I remember how much of a crazy resistance this was and also a support at the same time. So I'm looking at, and when you go to the daily, it's even more clear. So I'm looking at 58,000 and I really, really believe this is where we are more likely to land on the weekly. Now on the daily, before we get there, we are going to see some support around $66,000. And then you have another one, 65,000. So you can actually say this is the range right here on the daily. All right. And then, you lose 65,000. You're looking at that $58,000 support. But this is on the daily. When you go to the weekly, 58,000 is the one that actually stands out. Like you really don't have this 65, 66. It's kind of clear, but I like this one much better. So anyways, this is kind of my outlook on BTC. This is not short term, of course. I'm looking at, think about how long it took us to go from 126 to 80,000. You go from October of 2025 until oh wow, that was only 1 month. Interesting. Is that right? No, this is September 2025. This is the top, and then we go into October. So October, November. Yeah, I mean even that, this is like only 2 months. So, if we're looking at 2 months, going from 97,000, this is January. So you're looking at before the month of March, we could potentially be in the low 60s or in the higher 50s. Yo, I'll be surprised, to be very honest. I'll be surprised if the price of Bitcoin doesn't close below $74,000 this week. Like I really, really think we have a very good chance of closing below 74,000. And once we close below 74,000, it's going to get ugly. Like it really, really is going to get ugly. Like even right now, I think, we are in the middle of an acceleration. Like we are accelerating to the downside. You might not see it when you look at weekly, but look at this volatility. When you go short term, price of Bitcoin goes from 97,000. Literally, guys, this is $97,000 in on January 15. All right, January 15, we are $97,000. 20 days later, or maybe less than 20 days, price is at $75,000. Unbelievable. So yeah, anyways, for some of you guys that are new here, if this is your first time, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, whatever you have, guys. If you have some stuff that you want me to look at, just put them in the chat. What do we have right here? Meaning he's called not the market. I'm from Canada. Can you look at ZBCN? Absolutely. ZBCN is not looking good. I looked at it a couple of days ago because I have some people in my Discord who are investors in this project. So this is exactly what I'm talking about with these altcoins. ZBCN is about to drop down to these levels, in my opinion. Look, it doesn't have to, but let's be honest right here, guys. If we close this weekly below a lot of the support right here, all right, I'm looking at 0021. If we get a weekly close below this, like honestly, what else do you have in terms of support? Unless it's this range right here. And when you look at the absolute lows of the range, you're looking at 0.007. Now, we don't have to go to 0.007, but the lows are most likely, if they do come in, are most likely to come in this range right here. Now, if we do go down and we lose 0.007, you could potentially be looking at a project that goes way, way lower. Chat, I don't want to be negative, but I want to show you something. There's certain content that you got to stay away from. There is certain content that you got to stay away from. ZBCN, oh my gosh. Let me share with you something. Yo, chat, we got to be honest here. Stuff like this, you got to stay away from it. Stuff like this, you got to stay away from it. I mean, look at this, man. Stuff like that, you got to stay away from it. You got to stay away from it. I mean, look how bad some of these predictions are. All right, look, it's perfectly fine to be bullish on a project, but there comes a time where you have to be honest with your followers. And I've seen so many price predictions. I've seen a 400% move, in the next weeks, months predictions. I've seen some ridiculous. I've seen this creator that is constantly posting about ZBCN and how hard this project is going to pump, 500%, 1000%. The truth is, when you look at the chart, that is not true. Right? The truth is, when you look at the chart, that is not true. You have a project that is in a clear long-term downtrend. Like, this is a clear long-term downtrend. We put in the lows, the highs of its bull market around May of 2025. And ever since, every single rally, guys, has put in a weekly lower high. This was a weekly lower high on August of 2025. This was another weekly lower high on October of 2025. This one right here, the most recent one, another weekly lower high, January 2026. So right here now, you have a weekly lower low. Right? We have a weekly lower low. Look, the only way for you to feel bullish on this project, it needs to be on the other side of this yellow line, because this is the long-term trend. You have to be patient, right? I don't know how this is going to play out. We could potentially do something like this. Remember, this is going to take time. And then we might go sideways. And then we might break out. And then we get a pullback again. Something like this, guys, can take over a year to play out. Like, this is not the next 2 months, the next 3 months. No, this is going to take time. And remember, first, ZBCN is got to survive the bear market, because not every project gets to survive. We got to survive the bear market first. If the fundamentals are solid, like if the fundamentals are very strong, then the likelihood of surviving a bear market is definitely higher. Now, TA wise, you need to say this, before you can think of putting any single dollar in this project. You need to see a true bottom on the weekly. And I'm telling you right now, this is going to take time. This is going to take a lot of time. This is not something that is all of a sudden going to happen, over a few weeks or a few days. No, it's going to take months. And those months could potentially turn into years. Remember, the top is in May 2025. Right? We are still in a weekly downtrend, meaning the monthly time frame is pulling back. Right? Once the pullback is over, we are going to go sideways. Let me show you an example of that. In this last bull market, ZBCN built the base, its bullish consolidation from June of 2024, and you don't get the breakout until March of 2025. Yo, chat, this is 273 days of building a base. Let's say the bottom comes in, let's just say around September 2026. And then we spend another 270 days building a base. That, my friends, puts you sometimes until June of 2027. Right? We assuming the lows of the bear market comes in around August of 2026. And then we spend another 273 days building a base, very similar to the last one. You're looking at June of 2027, guys. So this is a long, long, long waiting. This is not my prediction. I'm just trying to paint a picture. I'm just trying to show you guys, hey, you don't need to be in a rush. Like, you do not need to do anything right now because there's no need to. Let's take a look at thoughts on Uber. Let's get back to the stock market. You know what's funny? I was accumulating Uber around, I think it's like below $20 in, but this is during the COVID times. Anyways, let's start from the monthly because we want to know what's going on the bigger time. Uber is in a long-term uptrend. The monthly looks really good. This is just a pullback, a healthy pullback based on the monthly. You have clear structures. All right, you have $59. That is a support that you definitely don't want broken. And then you have another one right here. Let's call it $39. That is another one. I don't know if you want me to go all the way down this low. But anyways, then the next one is going to be around 39. All right. Interestingly, this one was 39. The first one was 59. The last one is 29. Yeah, the number 9 is just looks like Uber loves it. Anyways, so yeah, this right now is a healthy pullback, but it's a monthly, of course. But if a monthly is pulling back, most likely you have a weekly that is in a downtrend. So let's take a look at the weekly. So if I'm looking at the weekly is definitely in a downtrend. You have lower highs and lower lows. So, so far it looks like Uber could potentially come back and retest $59. All right. It doesn't have to, but this is what it looks like to me. Could we potentially put in a bottom, anywhere around here? Yeah, possibly. But we'll see if that is the case. If we go down to the daily is in a clear downtrend as well. Lower lows, lower highs. And I don't see a reason, at least right now. It looks like we might have some bullish divergency. Let me see. It looks like we have some bullish divergency, though. If you look at the RSI, let me bring up my MACD as well. If you look at the RSI and even the MACD actually. So RSI one is the one that's even more clear, all right? As the price has been giving us these lower highs and lower lows. the RSI is giving us higher lows. So this is really, really good. I like this right here. But we need to see the lows before we do anything, or at least before you do anything. So let's take a look at what the 1 hour looks like. So if I go to the 1 hour, let me show you exactly what I would like to see. Now, I don't know where the lows, I don't know where we put in the low of this pullback right here. Looks like we broke below $78. So that could potentially mean, maybe we go a little lower. I don't know how low we go. What you want to see right here is this. $82 is a major resistance right now. So you want to make sure price breaks above $82 before you do anything. It doesn't have to be 82, but 82 is the last lower high. So we want to make sure we get above that in order to break the structure of this downtrend right here. Or if you get something like this, let's say price comes down here and then you get a move up and then you get another pullback and then you get another move up that breaks above this lower high right here, and then you get another pullback and then price goes up again. This is where you look to be a buyer. So you can look to be a buyer somewhere, either somewhere around here or even somewhere up here. All right, doesn't matter. But as of right now, this is the kind of structure that you need to see. If you don't see something like this, then you need to get something like this. Let me get rid of this. You need price to go above $82. You need to see a pullback. You need to see a higher low, or you need to see a double bottom. You need to see another move above. You need to see another move above, this high right here. And then you get another pullback. And then once you get a bounce, then you should be a buyer from that point on. So you can be a buyer somewhere around here. Remember, this is on the 1 hour, so you can be a buyer somewhere around here, or you can simply be a buyer somewhere around here, all right? What this will mean, all right, if you get something like this on the 1 hour, this will mean that the pullback on the daily is most likely over. And if you can jump in, you could be looking at a Uber that goes back to around $92 and also potentially around $100. Let me show you an example of that, using something that was in a downtrend and then the downtrend came to an end. Actually, let's use Uber as an example. So this is a pullback right here. Imagine what Uber was pulling back right here and price was here, all right? Imagine we're right here around $60. So let me highlight this. So $60 right here. All right. This is the longest I'm gonna spend on any asset. So if we go to the 1 hour, let me show you what we got that would have determined to us that the lows were actually in. So on the 1 hour, this is what we got. All right. You had a low right here. You had a low right here. All right. I'm looking at this one right here. And then you had a move that broke above this lower high, and then you had another pullback that gave us a higher low, and then you had another move up. All right, now this one is a lower high, which is perfectly fine, because what you care more about too is the pullback. And then you had a pullback right here, gave you another higher low. So now you have two higher lows. You could have either jumped into a position around here, or you could have waited for this breakout and then waited for the retest, and you could have jumped into a position maybe somewhere around $65, all right? So this right here, this entire process would have confirmed to you that the low on the daily was going to be put in, or was being put in. So if you have an entry right here, your stop loss is simply just right below $59. If your entry is right here, your stop loss is simply just right below 63. Now here, probably you got stopped out, but if you had a wider stop loss, let's say your stop loss was 63 instead of like 63.50 cents. All right, if your stop loss was 63.20 cents, 63.10 cents, then you would have been fine. But you look at the aftermath, price did go on to go up. All right, price ended up going up. So that's exactly what you want to see. So if I'm looking at Uber right now, personally, I wouldn't do anything. I will wait for a very similar process. Maybe if you don't get what I'm kind of showcasing right here, you potentially get a an inverse head and shoulders pattern, something like that looks like this, or you get exactly this right here where you have bullish divergences. If price can break above here, let's put a trend line. If price can break above, give you a pullback and a bounce, this is you jumping into a position. But I promise you, if you get something like this, the process is going to be exactly what I was kind of describing. So jump in right here, and then you look to take profits. I don't know, in the higher 90s, potential $90 range, or potentially back to around $100. So that would be Uber. Let's take a look at Monad. So Monad right here, I'm on the daily. This one looks like a fairly new project. Looks like I actually analyzed it. All right, so last time I looked at this project, I guess I was looking at, I don't know if the price was here. I was kind of looking at a pullback. It needs to give you a higher low. We didn't get that. We ended up with a lower high, with a lower low. So, boom, let me get rid of that. All right. On the daily though, it looks like we have some bullish divergences. So let's see how this is going to play out. But I want to go down to the 1 hour. So if I'm on the 1 hour right here, I am liking this. Yeah, I'm definitely liking the current price action. And I'm going to explain to you why. So basically kind of what I was talking about, you have a low right here. You have a higher low right here. So if you can get a bounce, if this can bounce right here, if this can bounce like this, I think it makes sense to jump in around, point 0.1, 0.01775 or 774. So somewhere around here is good to jump in. And then if you get a pullback, it's perfectly fine as long as you put in a higher low. Price should continue up. If you do something like this, I will put my stop loss. If this is the entry, I will make sure I have a stop loss. Hold on, is this right? I'm longing. If we do this, I'll make sure my stop loss is right below this low right here. If this is my entry, I make sure my stop loss is below this low. It's a 6%, 5% loss. And I'm targeting this is actually a really good trade. I'm targeting this target. Look, I am targeting somewhere around here, somewhere around almost 2 cents. This is a 15% move. And you can also target this, 2 cents right here, which is a 23% move. All right. So, yeah, this looks good as long as we get a bounce. I like what is happening with this structure, especially if you can get a breakout right here. If price can break out of this downtrend, yeah, you're more likely to retest around 0.022, which is a 30% move. So, yeah, I like the look of this. Kind of reminds me of this right here. Think about this process right here. Bam, back, up, back, and that was it. All right, like right here, you could have joined in around here. Stop loss just right below the lows. This is a 4% loss. And your target could have been this range right here. All right, 2 targets and this top right here. So you could have captured a first 7% move. No, not 7%, 15% move. And then all the way up, you were looking at a 26. But I'm going to say this. Price is at 25%. You're going after 26%. You would have took profits around here. So this would have been a really, really good trade. So, yeah, wait for a bounce. If you can get a bounce, I think makes sense to jump into a position. Not financial advice, of course. Do your own research. But I'm just gonna keep it like this anyway. We'll kind of revisit this. If you don't get a bounce, don't do anything. Wait until maybe price comes here. Whatever you do, wait for the bounce first. If it comes here, even better. Entry down here, stop loss below. The risk is even lower, and profits is much, much bigger. So yeah, wait and see how this all plays out. All right, what's next? Too late to get into VZ. What's VZ? Yo, let me pull Monad on my watch list. I will actually, it looks like I already have it. Oh, Verizon. Oh my god, man. Yeah, this is too. Yeah, this is definitely too late. So look, you see the same prices I was just kind of talking about. It's exactly right here, guys. Look, you get the first drop. You got the first drop. You got the retest. You got the second drop. You get another retest. Once you get this, like you can already tell this thing wants to go up. The moment you realize actually price is no longer going down, you should know. All right, something more positive is actually brewing. So you could have jumped into a position even around here. Yeah, I mean the gap is just wow. This is a massive gap. You could have jumped into a position somewhere around $39, and you would have targeted 42 and of course 44, and even now around 45. Yeah, too late right now. Let's go to the 4 hour. Maybe the daily might not be. Yeah, nah, this is too late. You're gonna have to wait for a pullback on the I guess the good thing is that on the daily, this could be the beginning of a much bigger move. I mean, this thing has been, yo, this is one of the worst stocks, though. Look at the movement of this thing. But this look, if we can break above, all right. So I don't want to say it's too late because there's always an entry. If Verizon can break above this resistance right here, if we can get a daily close above 47, that would be a very big trigger, and you could be looking at Verizon potentially going back into 55, 59, and $60. Like those will be my targets. But first, price has got to close above $47. If you go to the weekly, yeah, weekly is kind of consolidating and trying to do something. Oh man. Um, Coinbase. Let's talk about Coinbase, guys, because this one, I mean, honestly, it's actually sad. Well, I guess it's not sad because if your entry was from here, which it was the time to jump in around $80, 70, guys, I remember buying like I was buying Coinbase in the $50 range. Good times, man. Anyways, if I'm looking at Coinbase, excuse me, Coinbase is in a like this is a brutal pullback right here. The last time we had a V-shaped recovery, all right, here, using the weekly pullbacks like this, if they end up going back up, like the entries are always very, very tricky, and you can jump in super. I don't want to say late, but you can jump in at a much higher price. So if you were looking at a weekly, your entry would have been around $250 on something that was literally trading around 145. But if you use, all right, so when the price is retesting major higher time supports, you should always go on the 1 hour. See how the 1 hour is developed. It's kind of forming, okay, or developing out. If I'm looking at Coinbase, yo, this weekly right here, like this is a falling knife right here. There's not a reason to be a buyer. Clear targets that we are coming up to is, this $145 support. If we go to the 1 hour, I want to see, is there a reason for me to be a buyer? And right now, the answer is not. There is not a reason to be a buyer. You need to wait for a bounce. You need to wait for a pullback. You need to wait for another bounce that takes out the most previous lower high. And then you need to see another pullback. So until you get something like that, always, always stay on the sideline. Stay disciplined. allow the market to guide you. So if you don't get something like this, I'm telling you, do not do anything. Let this play out first. Doesn't matter if you're jumping in at 190, guys. If the price is going to $300, I don't think you are going to care whether you got in around $170 or $190. But if you jump in at 176 and we end up going down to 130, I think you are going to care. And your portfolio is not going to like it. So, yeah, Coinbase looks really, really bad. MicroStrategy, I have a position that's not doing well right now. And that's because I did exactly what I wasn't supposed to do. Mind you, I was in some profits because my entry is 172. When price was around, 190 something, I was in some profits. I didn't take profits. Now, this is not a big position, so, it's not like it's going to change anything. But look at where we are right now, $130. I could have waited. All right, I could have waited. But anyways, looking at strategy, one of the reason I have this really, really big hope that we're about to get a big rally is because, if you look at the weekly time frame, it's been a straight line. Hey, this is brutal, guys. So I do think, whether it's here or maybe we're coming back to $100, I do think we have a very big move, up into, at this point, look, if we get to $100, I'm just going to say the top comes in around 190 and then we get the final flash and then build a base for the next bull market. And then we go higher again. But anyways, right now I'm kind of looking at, probably, you're looking at Sailor Coin, which is MSTR, going to $100, which is, basically the target. Just looking at this entire range right here. So, look, MSTR, man. I was looking for some puts, a retest in the higher $200 range. I was looking for some puts, but it is what it is. You miss one, you miss another one. Who cares? All right. So what else do we have? Okay, Iran. This one right here, I think there's a very good chance we have already topped, and I'm gonna explain it to you guys. I'm on the 1 hour right now. It looks like this is a 1 hour lower high. Of course, when you pull back, that takes out $49. If Iran goes below its 200 moving average on the 1 hour, I believe you have a major pullback back to around $33. I'm just going to say it right now. We are going to revisit this conversation, but I don't like the look of this 1 hour setup. Like, I absolutely don't like the look of this. Like, to me, this has every single makeup of MicroStrategy when we were, losing the $400 range. So I'll give you guys an example. So when we were back here, all right, even back, right here is even more clear. When we were here and then we broke above these highs right here, and then we got this pullback, and then we started putting in these lower highs. That was a major, major red flag. And of course, guys, look at the outcome of it. All right, we'll go from $400 like straight down to $130. So I'm looking at Iran, and I'm telling you guys right now, if we lose, right now it's 49, right? You lose 49, you lose the 200 EMA. It is lights out, man. And I'm looking at it. You can actually short this thing. Like, if this is your entry, if your entry is, look, if this is your entry, let's say you actually believe the top is in, your stop loss, look, I would take a trade like this, to be very honest with you guys. Super, super risky. The risk is only 5%. And you're going after, a 35% move. Like, to me, this looks really good from a risk perspective. Now, waiting until prices below the 200 EMA, I think that would be the right thing to do. Now, right here, the risk is a little higher because you're risking more than, basically 10% of your portfolio. and profits, it still looks really good. You're looking at 30% profits. So yes, Iron, I don't like it. Right now, I'm really, really not liking it. And then, of course, when you overlay, chat, I'm gonna be honest. I think Iron is done. I'm just gonna say it right now. I think Iron is 100% done. Yo, I am comfortable or confident shorting Iron right here with a stop loss just right above $55. I'm confident in that. All right, stop loss $55. If you're wrong, you lose no more than 5% of your capital. But if you're right, you get some real dollars. Like this kind of reminds me of back here. Reminds me of this right here, guys, where we got rejected and then it was lights out. Anyways, people, guys, live streamed for the last hour. I don't think there's anything else for me to talk about. If I'm being very honest, the market looks really bad. Look, Ethereum looks really, really bad. We predicted this. I mean, absolutely spot on. What else? What else? Yo, what's his name? He's in some big, big trouble. Tom Lee. Tom Lee. Yo, child, am I allowed to play this? Tom Lee did an interview on CBS, and he talked about Ethereum, and his predictions are crazy. Tom Lee. Yeah, Tom Lee, whatever you're drinking, I want to drink the same thing. So let's play this for a little bit. Hopefully you guys can hear this. Tom Lee, man. Hopefully you guys can hear, chat. Whatever Tom Lee's out there drinking, I want to drink the same thing. Whatever Tom Lee is out there drinking, chat. Hopefully you guys can hear me. Whatever Tom Lee's out there drinking, I want to drink it. Hold on, man. All right, let me play this. Hopefully you guys can hear this. I'm gonna. Damn, where's my microphone of this?
A few things and just see if Tom, I wanted to spend a minute, if I can, talking about a company called Bitmine Emergent Technologies. You recently became chairman of that company, correct?
Yes, that's right.
I want to ask you a few things and just see if I got this right. Now, the stock I mentioned, it hit 161 very recently. It's been very volatile. The company did a PIPE, 250 million. I think sold as many as 55 million shares at, I guess, 450 or so a share, correct?
Yes.
Those shares have not yet been registered. Is that correct?
That's right.
Okay.
They will eventually be registered.
Okay, I want to make that point because, when you look at FactSet, you got 6 million shares out. It's a 300 million or so market cap, but that's not the case. This has got 61 million shares outstanding,
Yes.
at least, and a market value, therefore, even at 55, that is many billions of dollars, correct?
That math works.
Okay.
I'm following your math.
You're going out and you're spending the 250 million to buy Ether, is my understanding, or maybe a little Bitcoin, but mostly Ether.
Yes, it is for Ethereum.
Okay, and so this trades at a huge multiple to the amount of Ether you conceivably could buy with the money that was raised in the PIPE.
Yes, I mean, in the press release, there's a sort of a discussion about Ethereum treasury strategies, and to us, there is like a logic to what these companies are trying to do, because one, they're actually going to be using whatever relative premium exists to actually use capital markets to grow their Ethereum holdings.
Okay, so meaning what, you can add value to the overall holdings that you have through things that can be done in the Ethereum ecosystem.
Yes, as well as like taking advantage of the premium that exists in capital markets activities.
I see.
And of course, I think that there is really a rediscovery of Ethereum that's taking place, because Ethereum itself is one of the best performing crypto assets. It's up, annualizing,
right.
It's really taken off recently because the stable coin is the ChatGPT moment for crypto. Circle has blown the doors open. There's a lot of interest now on Wall Street getting involved with Ethereum and building stable coins. That's 30% of Ethereum's network usage today.
Right. But it is a technology in addition to, it's not just like Bitcoin, which is sort of seen as
that's right.
almost a gold. It is a technology. It could lose market share as well, couldn't it, to the likes of Solana?
That's true, but when you see like the JP Morgan stablecoin, it's being built on Ethereum.
Right.
Robinhood is building their tokenizing business on Ethereum. So as what they call a layer one, Ethereum is like the preferred choice for Wall Street. It already is more than 60% of all the tokenized real world assets, and I think that share is growing. If stablecoins grow to over 2 trillion, as Treasury Secretary Bessent predicts, that's an exponential usage of Ethereum and the Ethereum token. So It's really positive for Ethereum. And
it's right there, guys. Tom Lee is pouring millions, or should I say hundreds of millions or tens of millions of dollars into Ethereum. But boy, oh boy, Ethereum is not looking good. And when you look at BMNR, when you look at the BMine chart, this is not looking good. Chat, this is not looking good. This thing is going probably. This thing is heading back to around $4. When you look at this weekly right here, look, the same way you went up, it's exactly the same way it's coming back down. It's a straight line. Doesn't have any support until you get to around $3 and actually $4. And then you also have around $2.12. Yeah, absolutely ridiculous. So I think this is a lose, at least is it a short term, in the midterm, right? 6-12 months from now, I think Tom Lee is going to be underwater. Yeah, he's going to be looking at a position that's down substantial. So personally, I wouldn't do it. It looks like Ethereum. Look, by the look of this, it looks like Ethereum is coming all the way down into this $1,300-$1,500 range. If we do get some sort of a bottom around here, around $2,100, and guys, when I say the bottom, I'm always talking about the long-term bottom. Like, I'm not really talking about these little short-term bottoms where, the price goes from $2,100 to $2,300 or $2,500. That is not a bottom. That is a short-term rally. That's a short-term bounce. That's like a little tiny bounce. When I'm talking about a bottom, I'm talking about something like this, where price goes from $1,500 or $1,300 all the way up to almost $5,000. Like, this is a kind of bottom I'm talking about. So, if I'm looking at this, I don't think we're putting a long-term bottom around $2,100. I think we're going way, way lower. All right. I see this as my next target. Yes, on the daily, we might get some sort of a positive price action. I'm looking at my moving averages. Right now, price is at $2,100. The 21 EMA is at $2,700. The 50 EMA is at $2,900. Yeah, this is not sustainable, right? We shouldn't be so far from the EMAs. Maybe we do get a bounce. All right, retest the EMAs around $2,500, but that's not a bottom. All right, and that wouldn't change anything. Or we just go sideways, or we continue to go down, and then at some point, let's just say around $1,700, or exactly around here, we get a real relief rally back to retest the EMAs. And that will be back to retest $2,100. All right, I could see something like this playing out where price dumps all the way down here, and then we get a move to $2,100, and then we get another dump. All right, I could see something like that. Do I think we hold this $2,100 support? I don't think so, man. Like, I really, really don't think so. I think we're going all the way down here. And when you look at Solana, Solana is the other one that we also talked about. All right, look, Solana is below $100. Solana has lost its 200. I mean, not yeah. We lost that a long, long time ago. But Solana has lost its 200 weekly moving average. Right, like this right here, this is not looking good. If we lose, $95, Chad, you tell me, what else do we have in terms of support? Right, you don't have anything until $75. After 75, like you don't have anything until down in this range. And remember, we don't have to drop this low, but these levels are just right in front of you. And the last thing you should do right now is ignoring the most obvious, like the most obvious things, and the most obvious things right now is exactly what's in front of you. I've spent a lot of time on X. I'm commenting on a bunch of stuff, and my excuse me, my comments have been very clear, very transparent. This was a post from November 5th, BTC 103,000, and I was like, guys, look, man, you lose $96,000. It really is lights out. The super trend, the same super trend, the same indicator that gave you a buy signal at $22,000 is telling you get out of the market at 96,000. Respect it, man. All right, respect the indicators. Respect the trend of the market. Get out. I talked about Robinhood. Robinhood is in a very unique position right now. Looks very interesting to me. Not interesting in terms of grabbing a position, but Robinhood has lost its 200 daily moving average. The last time we lost this, you gotta have to go back to April 25, and then you also gotta have to go back to August 25. But both times, price quickly got back above the 200. This time, this is not looking good. All right, not only have we lost it, it looks like we are comfortable, going way, way lower. If you look at the Ichimoku cloud, all right, the bears are taking over control of this asset. Remember, the further the price from the cloud, the strength, the momentum, all right? So the momentum is very strong with the bears right now. And the thicker, all right, the thicker the cloud, the stronger the momentum. So if I'm looking at this, I'm absolutely not liking it. The last time we had pullbacks, you can clearly see didn't really last. Last time we had a similar, bearish confirmations that was quickly reversed. So when you look at now, you can clearly see this time is different, and this is a clear downtrend. Let's take a look at the weekly super trend. So weekly super trend indicator has gave you a sell signal for the first time since the last one was a fake out since April of 20. This is April? Yeah, no, February, no, March of 2025. All right. On the weekly, you don't normally get, a lot of fake outs with these indicators. They tend to be very, very what am I saying? Trustworthy, okay? And they tend to be truthful as well. And I'm looking at this, and I absolutely don't like it. Not only that, we lost $100, which was a major support, and we also lost, the biggest one was actually $90. That was a big support on the weekly. So if you look at the weekly time frame, we are now in a very clear downtrend. Yes, there's going to be a rally, guys. But the rally is more likely to give us a weekly lower high. This is something that we didn't see with the last pullbacks. So the last time we had weekly pullbacks, like not once did we actually, look like we were in a downtrend, because this was a normal pullback. Not once did we see a continuation of lower highs and lower lows. And even when you go back to, even back, well, this was the bear market. This was the bear market. So this one doesn't count. The bull market started right here. But when you look at these pullbacks, like this is just a normal pullback. This is not a structure that was broken where you have lower highs and lower lows. So I think Robinhood could potentially experience a deeper pullback. So if I'm looking at Robinhood right here, my next target on the weekly will be around $67. So I'm basically looking at previous high right here. That becomes some sort of a support. Once you lose that, I know you guys don't want to hear this, but you're basically looking at $30. All right. Good afternoon. You're basically looking at $30. All right, chat. We just did an hour, 20 minutes. I do not want to do a 2-hour live stream. I think we have gone through everything that we could possibly go through. We talked about so much. We will do this again tomorrow. We'll talk about the market again tomorrow. All right. Appreciate you guys. Have a great day. Remember, don't forget to subscribe, smash the like,